Hello, everyone. We're going to play a Beatles trivia game. And I'm wearing my Beatles shirt. And we're going to answer 20 questions. See if you know if you're a Beatle fan. And I'm guessing uh, if you're around in your late 40s or maybe your late 30s, but probably more like in your 50s, you would know some of these questions. But if you're a young Beatle fan, Uh, I I think that's great because the Beatles really were good at their craft. I'm gonna bring this up just a bit. Here we go. They were really great. They were really good with their music. And if you don't know who the Beatles are, uh, you've been living under a rock, I guess. Not really. Just kidding. The Beatles are one of the great musicians of all times. I'm gonna do some trivia questions and see if you know the answers. So here we go. You ready? Are you ready to start? And you'll probably see the reflection of the answers. I'm going off a BuzzFeed Beatle trivia game, and so I am going to go over those with you. Let's see how many questions you can answer without using Google to answer these questions for help. The Beatles quiz. What was the only Beatles song written by George Harrison that was released in a single? The only song that was released at the time, the Beatles let him release the song, and I'll give you some multiple choice answers and see if you can guess which one it is. Is it Taxman? Something? While my guitar is gently weeping? I'm happy just to dance with you. So one of those four questions, or answers I should say, sorry. The answer is something. Something. Uh, they released it in a 45. If you remember, if you know what a 45 is, it's a little record about this big, and it played on 45, speed 45, I wish say. All right, let's see what the next question is. What year did John say the Beatles were more popular than Jesus? And I don't want to speak for John, but I don't think he meant it in a bad way. He just means, he probably just meant that they're just very popular, and he didn't know how they got so successful so right away that they got successful. And at that time, um, everybody started throwing their records away, burning them, throwing them in trash piles, and it was very bad for the Beatles at that year. And what year do you think it was? Was it 1966, 1967, 1964, or 1965? Well, the year was 1966. That was something that John shouldn't have said, but he's had that moment, I guess, and he's like, wow, we're just so popular. Which song was not musically referenced in All You Need Is Love? What song was not referenced in All You Need Is Love? Was it In the Mood by Glenn Miller? Was it Marcella Us? All right, the French national anthem. Love Me by Elvis Presley? I apologize, I mispronounced that word a while ago. No disrespect to the French national anthem. She Loves You by the Beatles, and the answer was Love Me by Elvis Presley. All right, the next question is, who was the following was never who was of the following was never a member of the Beatles? There are four people they mention here. Who was not a Beatle? Stuart Sutcliffe, Tommy Moore, Jimmy Nicolai, or Arthur Mack? And the answer is Arthur Mack. Arthur Mack was a member of the Pacemakers, another Liverpool band managed by Brian Epstein. And he was also the manager for the Beatles. What song was on the B-side of Lady Madonna? What song was on the B-side of Lady Madonna? Was it Rain, Revolution, Enter the Light, I Am a Walrus? And the correct answer is The Inner Light. The Inner Light. What was the last Beatles stadium concert performed? Where did they perform their last concert in a stadium? Was it in London, San Francisco, Manila, or Liverpool? London, San Francisco, Manila, or Liverpool? The answer is San Francisco. They played there in August 29, 1966 at Candlestick Park in San Francisco on a Monday. And the ticket they showed here is on the upper stand box, and it costs $4.50. Isn't that amazing? $4.50. I guess back then it was a lot of money, but just to think how much money the concerts cost now to go see a rock band here, it's just amazing. $4.50. Who drew the cover for the cover art for the album Revolver? Revolver was a Beatle album, and it was Klaus Boardman. It was Klaus Boardman, and he was a friend of the Beatles from their days in Hamburg. Aside from being a graphic artist, he was a musician, a record producer, and remained friends with the Beatles throughout their career. What is the only Beatles single in which they don't play an instrument? I'm sorry. Oh, I kicked the table. Sorry about that. This question stumped me because I went over these questions earlier, and I didn't memorize the answers, but I don't. There's some of the albums that I listened to were either their first albums or their remastered albums. So the answers are Revolution number 9, and if you remember that song, it keeps saying number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9. And I thought that was it earlier. Because She's Leaving Home, or Eleanor Rigsby? Well, the answer was Eleanor Rigsby. None of the Beatles played any instruments in this song. They didn't on She's Leaving Home either, but that was never released as a single. Who never performed on a Beatles album? What artist never performed on a Beatles album? Eric Clapton, Marianne Faithfull, Yoko Ono, Eric Burdon. Yoko Ono was John Lennon's wife, and I know she performed on some of their albums. But it was Eric Burdon, and they don't tell me who that is, but okay. Which Beatles song is considered the first song to ever utilize a guitar amplifier feedback? Which Beatles song utilized the guitar amplifier feedback? And the answer is, I Feel Fine. Which song does not have a title in its lyrics? Which Beatles song does not have a title in its lyrics? And the answers are Tomorrow Never Knows, Savory Truffle, Blue Jay Way, Dig a Pony. And the answer was Tomorrow Never Knows. On the cover Abbey Road, what order are the Beatles walking in from left to right? And probably is opposite what I'm speaking, telling you. You're probably, when you see this, it's probably the mirror image. So it's probably going to be right to left. But we're going to start from the back of the line to the front of the line. So the front of the line, they give you some answers. Is it George, Ringo, Paul, and John? Or is it George, Paul, George, I'm sorry, did I say George, Paul? Or was it, I'm doing the second one. Or was it George, Paul, Ringo, and John? Or was it Ringo, Paul, George, and John? Or Ringo, George, Paul, and John? That's really confusing, right? But the answer is the beginning of the line was John, and then Ringo, then Paul, and George. So the answer would be George, Paul, Ringo, and John. I just probably totally confused you, right? Sorry about that. What was the last song recorded by all four Beatles? What was the last song recorded by all four Beatles? Was it Get Back, Let It Be, The End, or I, Me, Mine? I thought it was Let It Be, but it wasn't. The answer was The End. And also, I, Me, Mine was recorded afterwards, but John was absent at that session. So you would think about it, the end, I meant that was it. That was the last song recorded by all four Beatles. What was Paul McCartney's working title for Yesterday? What was the working title for Yesterday? That means when he was writing the song, he just made up a title, I guess, till they actually figured out what they were going to name it. And so the working title, was it Peppermint, Every Girl, Scrambled Eggs, or Silly Boy? I just happened to hear a program the other day on National Public Radio, and they were talking about this song, and I didn't realize, but this is what they named it. That's the working title for the song Yesterday was Scrambled Eggs. Let's see. Which song? Which Beatle was born first? Which Beatle was born first? In other words, who is the oldest Beatle? Was it George, Paul, John, or Ringo? And the answer is Ringo. Ringo is the oldest Beatle. Which Beatles song is about a dog? Which Beatles song is about a dog? I'm so tired, Martha, my dear, Julia, why don't we do it in the road? Yes, they had a song called Why Don't We Do It in the Road? The answer is Martha, my dear. All right. Which ex-Beatle was the first to have a #1 solo album in the U.S.? Which ex-Beatle had their first solo album that was #1 in the U.S.? Was it John, Ringo, George Harrison, or Paul McCartney? And the answer is George. And that album was called My Sweet Lord. It hit #1 in December 1970. I Am a Walrus contains dialogue from what Shakespearean play? I Am a Walrus contains what dialogue from a Shakespearean play? Was it Hamlet, Macbeth, Richard III, King Lear? And the answer is King Lear. John was fiddling with the AM radio into the microphone and happened to catch a BBC radio play, King Lear. What was the first Beatles song to be recorded in stereo? What was the first Beatles song recorded in stereo? And was it I Saw Her Standing There, Hold Me Tight, 8 Days a Week, or I Wanna Hold Your Hand? And the song was I Wanna Hold Your Hand was the first song recorded in stereo for the Beatles. What was the last cover song the Beatles ever recorded? The last cover song the Beatles ever recorded. Was it Dizzy Miss Lizzy, Maggie May, Act Naturally, or Sun King? The answer is Maggie May. It's a traditional Liverpool folk song dating back to the 1800s. It became popular again during the skiffle craze that the young Beatles were part of. They recorded the song in 1968 for their album Let It Be. So how did we do? We did well because I gave you all the answers. Not that I knew them. When I first took this quiz, I got 11 out of 20. But I kept the answers open so that way when we go together this quiz, that I would be sure and give you the right answer. And it's funny, this quiz says, you got 11 out of 20 right. Your mother should know. And, yeah, my mother was older, I guess, but I don't think she was a Beatle fan. So. Well, thank you for joining me, and I hope you liked this Beatle trivia game with me today. It was fun, and if you like this, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to my channel, I would appreciate it. Thank you. And we'll see everybody next time. Bye, everyone. Let me get this real quick. Bye, everyone. We'll see y'all. Thank you.